In the bustling heart of New York City, amidst the towering steel and glass skyscrapers of Manhattan, stood the Carter Corporation. Its sleek blue-tinted facade, a masterpiece of modern architecture, reflected the sun's rays like a jewel amidst the urban jungle. Inside, the grandeur continued with an Italian marble lobby that gleamed under the warm glow of crystal chandeliers. Every detail spoke of precision, wealth, and the meticulous vision of the man behind it all, Benjamin Carter. At 38 years old, Benjamin Carter was the epitome of success. Tall and impeccably dressed, his tailored navy suit clung to his athletic frame, exuding sophistication. His jet-black hair, always perfectly groomed, framed a face that seemed chiseled by the winds of ambition. His piercing, dark eyes, as cold and calculating as the steel beams of the building he commanded, held a sharpness that intimidated and awed those who dared to meet his gaze. Underneath it all, however, there lay a void, a loneliness buried beneath years of relentless pursuit of power and perfection. Benjamin was a man of few words, but great impact. As the CEO of Carter Technologies, a leader in cutting-edge tech innovations, his reputation for brilliance was rivaled only by his inflexibility and arrogance. Employees whispered about him in hushed tones, a mixture of fear and admiration in their voices. Under his leadership, the company had scaled unprecedented heights, but few dared to approach him. He was, after all, a fortress of resolve and an enigma wrapped in authority. This particular morning, Benjamin strode purposefully through the pristine lobby of the Carter Corporation. His eyes were fixed on his phone, his fingers deftly tapping commands as he held a heated business conversation. His voice, firm and commanding, echoed against the marble walls, cutting through the hum of activity around him. To the world, he was a titan, an untouchable force of nature. To himself, he was simply fulfilling the next task, scaling the next peak. As he approached one of the exclusive elevators reserved for the executive floors, the soft chime of the door's opening broke his focus momentarily. Benjamin stepped inside, still engrossed in his phone. It was only when a gentle, melodic voice greeted him that he looked up. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. Straight to your penthouse, or should I take you to another floor first?" Surprised, Benjamin glanced up from his device. The voice belonged to a young woman seated in a wheelchair, her uniform crisp and her demeanor calm. She wasn't who he had expected. A subtle frown crossed his face as he processed the sight before him. "Who are you?" he asked sharply, his tone more curious than accusatory. The woman met his gaze with unwavering confidence. "My name is Elena Diaz. I'm the new elevator operator." For a moment, Benjamin was silent, his mind racing. An elevator operator in a wheelchair? It seemed like a joke from the HR department. His skepticism was evident as he raised an eyebrow. "Is this some sort of temporary arrangement?" he asked, his voice laced with a hint of condescension. "Surely, this can't be a permanent position." Elena didn't flinch. Her serene demeanor remained intact as she replied, "I assure you, Mr. Carter, I am fully capable of performing my duties. Sometimes it's not about the circumstances we face, but how we rise above them." Her words, though simple, carried a weight that seemed to linger in the air. Benjamin, unaccustomed to being challenged, let alone by an employee, felt a flicker of something he couldn't quite place. Was it annoyance? Intrigue? Whatever it was, he remained silent for the rest of the ride, his thoughts occupied by the unexpected encounter. As the elevator reached his penthouse office, Benjamin stepped out without a word. But as the doors closed behind him, the memory of Elena's calm, composed presence stayed with him, unsettling the carefully constructed world he had built around himself. The mid-morning sun streamed through the expansive windows of Benjamin Carter's penthouse office, casting a golden glow on the sleek furniture and modern decor. From his leather chair behind an enormous oak desk, Benjamin gazed out over the cityscape. The skyline was a reflection of his achievements, a constant reminder of the empire he had built. But today his thoughts were elsewhere, circling back to the brief but memorable interaction he had with the new elevator operator. Her calm voice, her unwavering gaze, and her dignified response had struck a chord he hadn't anticipated. Benjamin shook his head, brushing aside the distraction. His schedule was relentless, and there was no time to dwell on fleeting moments. He focused on the reports before him, meticulously analyzing the figures and projections. Yet, as much as he tried to concentrate, a lingering question gnawed at him. Why had Elena Diaz unsettled him? He was used to people deferring to him, intimidated by his authority. But Elena had been different, poised, unshaken, and strangely insightful. Hours later, his day proceeded as usual, with meetings, negotiations, and phone calls filling every minute. Yet each time he stepped into the elevator, he half expected, perhaps even hoped, to see her again. By mid-afternoon, the opportunity arose. As he entered the elevator to leave for a meeting across town, there she was, sitting calmly in her wheelchair, the same serene expression on her face. She greeted him with a simple, "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. Lobby or garage?" He hesitated, unsure why his usual briskness abandoned him. "Garage," he said curtly, stepping in. The doors closed, and for a moment silence enveloped the small space. It was Benjamin who broke it this time. "I find it unusual that you're here. Most people in your calm position wouldn't apply for a role like this." "Why did you?" Elena turned her gaze toward him, her eyes steady and thoughtful. "Life doesn't always go the way we plan, Mr. Carter. What matters is how we adapt. This job allows me to stay productive and meet people from all walks of life. It's a way to keep moving forward." Her words hung in the air, simple yet profound. Benjamin found himself studying her, searching for any sign of bitterness or defeat. But there was none. Instead, there was an unshakable sense of purpose that intrigued him more than he cared to admit. When the elevator reached the garage, Benjamin hesitated before stepping out. He turned back to look at her. "You don't let anything stop you, do you?" Elena smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips. "No, Mr. Carter, I don't." That night, as Benjamin sat alone in his penthouse, his mind wandered back to Elena. Her words echoed in his thoughts, mingling with memories of his own struggles, buried deep beneath layers of success and pride. He had always believed that power and control were the keys to overcoming life's challenges, but Elena's quiet strength suggested a different path, one he hadn't considered before. The next morning, Benjamin arrived at the office earlier than usual, his thoughts still occupied by Elena. To his surprise, as he crossed the lobby, she was there again, assisting an older gentleman into the elevator. Her kindness and patience were evident in every gesture. For a man like Benjamin, who valued efficiency above all else, it was a scene he wouldn't typically notice. But today it caught his attention and refused to let go. Later that day, Benjamin found himself in a meeting with the HR department, ostensibly to discuss staffing for a new project. But as the meeting concluded, he brought up a question that had been simmering in his mind. The new elevator operator, Elena Diaz. Who hired her? The HR manager looked surprised but quickly responded. She was recommended by a local community outreach program. We were initially hesitant, but her qualifications and determination impressed us. Benjamin nodded, dismissing the conversation with a wave of his hand. But the answers only deepened his curiosity. He decided he needed to know more. Over the following days, Benjamin's interactions with Elena became more frequent. Each conversation, no matter how brief, left him with a sense of admiration he couldn't shake. There was something about her resilience, her ability to face the world with quiet confidence despite the challenges she faced, that resonated with him on a level he hadn't expected. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city lights began to twinkle, Benjamin lingered in the lobby, waiting for Elena's shift to end. When she finally wheeled herself toward the exit, he approached her. His usual guarded demeanor softened. "Elena," he began, his voice uncharacteristically tentative, "would you join me for coffee? There's something I'd like to discuss with you." She looked at him, her brow furrowing slightly in surprise. "Coffee? With you?" He nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I promise it's nothing formal, just a conversation." After a brief pause, Elena agreed, her curiosity piqued. Together they walked. Well, Benjamin walked and she wheeled herself to a nearby cafe. The evening air was crisp, carrying with it the hum of the city. Inside the cafe, the warm ambiance and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee created a stark contrast to the cold, sterile world of the Carter Corporation. As they sat across from each other, Benjamin began to ask her questions, not about her job or her qualifications, but about her life. What had brought her to New York? What were her dreams? At first hesitant, Elena gradually opened up, sharing pieces of her story. She spoke of the accident that had changed her life 5 years ago, the long road to recovery, and the countless battles she had fought to rebuild her sense of self. Benjamin listened intently, his usual aloofness replaced by genuine interest. Her story moved him in ways he hadn't anticipated. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him, a yearning to understand, to connect, to be more than just the sum of his accomplishments. As the evening wore on, their conversation grew deeper. Elena's wisdom and perspective challenged Benjamin's worldview, and he found himself questioning the values he had held on to for so long. By the time they left the cafe, he knew that meeting her had been no coincidence. It was the beginning of something that neither of them could fully comprehend yet, but would change their lives forever. Let me know if you'd like me to continue from this point. The days following their coffee outing marked a subtle yet undeniable shift in Benjamin Carter's life. Each time he saw Elena, whether during her shift or in passing, he found himself drawn to her. What had initially been curiosity was transforming into something deeper, a respect for her unyielding spirit and an admiration for her ability to face life with grace and strength. It was unsettling for a man who prided himself on control and precision, but Benjamin no longer tried to suppress it. For Elena, the connection was equally puzzling. Benjamin was unlike anyone she had ever met, commanding, confident, and seemingly untouchable. Yet beneath his stoic exterior, she sensed a man wrestling with his own vulnerabilities, someone who was beginning to see the world through a different lens. She couldn't deny that their conversations had become the highlights of her day, even if she didn't fully understand why. One evening, as Benjamin was finishing his work for the day, he received a call from an unfamiliar number. Answering it, he was greeted by the voice of a woman he hadn't spoken to in years, Amelia Laurent, an old flame and, more recently, a socialite known for her sharp wit and high-profile lifestyle. Her voice was as polished as ever, but there was an urgency to her tone that caught his attention. "Benjamin," she said, "I'm in New York for a few weeks. We need to talk." Benjamin hesitated. He hadn't thought about Amelia in years, and their parting had been anything but amicable. Still, curiosity and a sense of obligation led him to agree to meet her for dinner the following evening. The next day, Benjamin found himself sitting across from Amelia in an upscale restaurant. She was as striking as ever, her presence commanding the room. Yet, as the conversation unfolded, it became clear that Amelia hadn't reached out for old times' sake. She had heard whispers about his recent dealings and had come with a proposition, a partnership that could elevate her own ventures while benefiting the Carter Corporation. While Amelia spoke with practiced elegance, Benjamin found his thoughts drifting to Elena. Compared to Amelia's polished demeanor, Elena's authenticity felt like a breath of fresh air. He realized how much he had come to value Elena's presence in his life, and the contrast between the two women couldn't have been starker. At the end of the evening, as Amelia leaned in with a flirtatious smile and suggested they catch up properly sometime, Benjamin politely declined. "I've moved on, Amelia," he said simply, leaving her stunned and visibly annoyed as he exited the restaurant. The following morning, Benjamin decided to act on what had been weighing on his mind. He arranged a meeting with Elena, inviting her to join him for lunch. Surprised but intrigued, she agreed, and they met at a quiet bistro near the office. Over the course of their meal, Benjamin opened up about his encounter with Amelia, using it as a springboard to discuss his evolving perspective on life. "I've spent so many years chasing success," he admitted, his voice softer than usual. "But meeting you, Elena, has made me realize how much I've overlooked. The simple things, the connections that truly matter." Elena listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "It's never too late to change," she said gently. "Sometimes it takes meeting the right person to remind us of what's truly important." Their conversation lingered in Benjamin's mind long after lunch had ended. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of clarity. It wasn't just about Elena's resilience or her ability to inspire him. It was about the possibility of a different life, one where he could finally let down his guard and embrace the humanity he had long suppressed. A week later, fate took an unexpected turn. Benjamin was in a meeting when he received a call from his assistant, informing him of a minor incident involving Elena in the lobby. Concerned, he excused himself and hurried downstairs. When he arrived, he found Elena seated in her wheelchair, her expression calm despite the commotion around her. "What happened?" Benjamin asked, his voice laced with concern. Elena looked up at him, her eyes steady. "It's nothing serious," she said reassuringly. "One of the elevator doors malfunctioned, and I got stuck for a few minutes. The maintenance team was quick to help." Relieved but still shaken, Benjamin knelt beside her. "Are you sure you're all right? I can have someone take you home if you need." Elena smiled, touched by his concern. "I'm fine, really, but thank you, Benjamin." For a moment they simply looked at each other, the chaos of the lobby fading into the background. Benjamin felt a warmth he hadn't known in years, a sense of connection that both comforted and unsettled him. Without fully realizing it, he reached out and took her hand, holding it gently. "Elena," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "I don't know where this is going, but I do know that meeting you has changed me. You've made me see the world and myself differently. I'm grateful for that." Elena's expression softened, and she squeezed his hand lightly. "Sometimes all it takes is a little kindness to remind us of what really matters." As Benjamin helped her back to her station, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was on the cusp of a profound transformation. For the first time, he was ready to embrace it. In the weeks that followed, the bond between Benjamin and Elena deepened in ways neither had anticipated. Their encounters became more frequent, their conversations more personal. Benjamin found himself drawn to Elena's wisdom and resilience, while Elena began to see a softer, more vulnerable side of the man who had once seemed untouchable. Their connection was undeniable, though neither spoke openly about what it might mean. One evening, Benjamin made an uncharacteristically impulsive decision. After a particularly long day at work, he found himself at the building's lobby just as Elena was finishing her shift. He approached her, his usual air of authority softened into something more approachable. "Elena," he said, his tone warm but uncertain, "do you have plans tonight? I was thinking we could grab dinner, something casual." Elena hesitated, taken aback by the invitation. She searched his face, looking for signs of insincerity, but found none. "Dinner?" she repeated, her voice tinged with surprise. Benjamin smiled, a genuine expression that made him seem almost boyish. "Yes, dinner. Nothing formal, just two people sharing a meal." After a moment's pause, Elena nodded. All right, dinner sounds nice. They left the building together, Benjamin insisting on calling for a car to take them to a small, unassuming Italian restaurant he frequented. The place was a far cry from the upscale venues he typically chose for business dinners, but it held a charm that immediately put Elena at ease. As they sat across from each other, the evening unfolded with a natural ease neither had expected. They talked about everything, from their childhoods to their dreams and fears. Benjamin opened up about his strained relationship with his late father, a man whose relentless pursuit of success had shaped Benjamin's own path. Elena shared stories of her life before the accident, her love for art, and her hopes for the future. Somewhere between the appetizers and dessert, a comfortable silence fell over them. Benjamin found himself watching Elena as she gazed out the window, the soft glow of the restaurant's lighting highlighting her delicate features. For the first time in years, he felt at peace, as though the weight of his carefully constructed world had lifted, if only for a moment. "Elena," he said softly, breaking the silence, "I want you to know that meeting you has been transformative for me. You've made me see things differently, made me want to be better." Elena turned to him, her eyes searching his face. She saw the sincerity there, the vulnerability he rarely showed. "Benjamin," she began, her voice steady but kind, "you're already on that path. Sometimes it just takes someone to remind us of who we can be." The simplicity of her words struck a chord in Benjamin. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to hope, for change, for happiness, for a life beyond the walls of his office and the weight of his responsibilities. The evening ended with Benjamin walking Elena to her door, a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood. As they stood in the hallway, an unspoken tension hung between them. Benjamin hesitated, then reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Thank you for tonight," he said, his voice low. "It meant more to me than you know." Elena smiled, her eyes warm. "It meant a lot to me, too. Good night, Benjamin." He lingered for a moment before stepping back, watching as she wheeled herself inside. As the door closed, he felt a sense of longing he couldn't quite explain. For the first time in years, Benjamin Carter wasn't thinking about his next deal or his next conquest. He was thinking about a woman who had changed everything. The next morning, Benjamin arrived at work feeling unusually lighthearted, but his mood quickly shifted when he was informed of an unexpected visitor, Amelia Laurent. She was waiting for him in the penthouse, her presence a reminder of the life he was trying to leave behind. When he entered his office, Amelia was already seated, her posture radiating confidence. She turned to face him, a knowing smile on her lips. "Benjamin," she began, her tone smooth as silk, "I've been hearing things about you and a certain elevator operator." Benjamin stiffened, his expression hardening. "What's your point, Amelia?" Amelia leaned forward, her smile sharpening. "You're a man of power, Benjamin. You can't afford distractions, especially ones that might tarnish your reputation. I'm here to offer you a reminder of what's at stake." Benjamin's jaw tightened, anger simmering beneath the surface. "What I choose to do with my life is none of your concern, and for the record, Elena isn't a distraction. She's more of a human being than anyone I've met in years, including you." Amelia's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of genuine surprise. "Careful, Benjamin," she warned, her voice icy. "Not everyone will see things the way you do." "I don't care how they see it," Benjamin shot back, his voice firm. "What matters is that I see clearly for the first time in years." Amelia stood, her eyes narrowing. "You'll regret this," she said, her tone laced with venom. Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. As the doors to his office closed behind her, Benjamin felt an unshakable sense of resolve. He knew his feelings for Elena would be met with skepticism, perhaps even criticism, but for the first time, he didn't care. All that mattered was the possibility of something real, something that could finally fill the void he had carried for so long. That evening, as he rode the elevator down to the lobby, Benjamin found Elena waiting there, her presence a welcome relief after the tense encounter with Amelia. He stepped inside, his expression softening as their eyes met. "Elena," he said, his voice warm, "would you have dinner with me again?" Elena tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Are you sure you're ready for that kind of reputation risk, Mr. Carter?" Benjamin chuckled, a sound so rare it surprised even him. "For you, Elena, absolutely." As the elevator doors closed, Benjamin felt a sense of anticipation he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time, his future felt uncertain, and he welcomed it. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change for Benjamin. His burgeoning connection with Elena shifted his perspective on nearly every aspect of his life. Meetings and deadlines that once consumed him began to feel less urgent. Instead, he found himself carving out time to simply exist in Elena's presence. Whether they were talking over coffee or walking through the park, her wheelchair replaced with a motorized scooter for longer distances, Benjamin felt a peace he hadn't known in decades. For Elena, the transformation in Benjamin was equally surprising. The man who had once seemed so cold and unreachable now showed kindness, vulnerability, and even humor. Though she had long guarded her heart, she couldn't deny that she had begun to care for him deeply. One crisp autumn evening, Benjamin invited Elena to his penthouse for dinner. Though she hesitated at first, worried about stepping into his world of luxury, he reassured her. "It's just me," he'd said with a smile, and a mediocre attempt at cooking. When she arrived, she was greeted not by a staff of servants but by Benjamin himself, dressed casually in a sweater and slacks. The table was set with simple dishes he'd prepared himself, a far cry from the catered affairs she had imagined. As they sat down to eat, their conversation flowed easily. Benjamin opened up about his past, sharing stories of his strict upbringing and the sacrifices he'd made to reach the top. Helena listened, her heart aching for the boy he had once been, so eager to prove himself but so desperately in need of warmth and validation. In turn, she shared more of her journey, the struggles of adapting to life after her accident, the friends she had lost, and the quiet victories she had claimed along the way. At one point, Benjamin leaned back in his chair, watching her as she spoke. "You amaze me," he said softly, his voice tinged with awe. "You've been through so much, and yet you carry yourself with such grace. I don't think I've ever met anyone as strong as you." Elena blushed, shaking her head. "Strength is just a necessity, Benjamin. When life knocks you down, you either stay there or you get up. I just chose to get up." "You make it sound so simple," he replied, his gaze never leaving hers. "But for someone like me who's always relied on power and control, it's not. You've shown me another way, a better way." Their eyes locked, and in that moment the air seemed to shift. Benjamin reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The touch was gentle but deliberate, a silent acknowledgment of the growing bond between them. "Elena," he said, his voice steady, "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want you to be a part of it." Elena's breath hitched, her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent so long keeping her guard up, convincing herself that someone like Benjamin could never truly see her. But now, looking into his eyes, she realized he did. "I feel the same way," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But are you sure? My life isn't simple." "Neither is mine," he replied with a faint smile. "But I'm willing to figure it out, if you are." Their budding romance, however, was not without its challenges. As news of their relationship began to circulate, Benjamin faced scrutiny from colleagues and board members alike. Whispers of disapproval reached his ears, questioning his judgment and priorities. Even Elena felt the sting of judgment from strangers who didn't understand the connection between them. Despite it all, Benjamin stood firm. He publicly defended Elena, making it clear that she was not just a fleeting interest, but someone who had become integral to his life. But just as their relationship seemed to find solid footing, an unexpected revelation threatened to unravel everything. One afternoon, as Benjamin was reviewing some old documents in his private archive, he came across a report that had been buried for years, a report detailing a hit-and-run accident involving a luxury car owned by none other than Amelia Laurent. The details matched the story Elena had shared about her accident, the gray Lamborghini, the partial license plate, the night of the incident. Benjamin's blood ran cold as he pieced it together. Amelia, the woman who had once been a part of his life, had been the cause of Elena's suffering. The weight of this knowledge bore down on him, filling him with a mix of anger and dread. He knew he couldn't keep this from Elena, but he also knew the pain it would cause her. That evening, Benjamin invited Elena to his penthouse once again. As they sat together, the tension in the air was palpable. "Elena," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "there's something I need to tell you, and I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you." She looked at him, concern flickering in her eyes. "What is it, Benjamin?" He took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly together. "I've discovered something about the accident that changed your life. It wasn't random. It was Amelia. She was the one driving that night." Elena's face went pale, her hands trembling as she processed his words. "Amelia? The woman you used to—" She couldn't finish the sentence, her voice cracking under the weight of her shock. Benjamin reached for her hand, his grip firm but comforting. "I swear to you, I didn't know until now, and I won't let her get away with it. She has to take responsibility for what she's done." Tears filled Elena's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Part of me wants justice, but another part of me, I don't want to live in anger, Benjamin. I've worked so hard to move on." He nodded, understanding the conflict within her. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you, but I can't stand by and do nothing. She has to face the consequences." As the night wore on, they sat together in quiet solidarity, the weight of the revelation hanging between them. Despite the pain, their connection remained unbroken. For Benjamin, it was a reminder of Elena's resilience, her ability to find strength even in the face of unimaginable challenges. And for Elena, it was proof that Benjamin's love for her was steadfast, even as the truth threatened to tear them apart. The days following Benjamin's revelation were a blur of emotion for Elena. Anger, sadness, and confusion churned within her, but she refused to let herself be consumed. She had spent years rebuilding her life piece by piece, and she wasn't about to let Amelia's actions define her again. Benjamin remained by her side, offering support without overstepping, a testament to how much he had grown since they first met. For Benjamin, the discovery left him grappling with a mix of guilt and responsibility. Amelia had been a part of his life once, and now her actions had caused unimaginable pain to the woman he loved. He resolved to confront Amelia, to hold her accountable, but not before ensuring that Elena's voice guided his decisions. One evening, as they sat in her modest apartment, Benjamin broached the subject gently. "Elena," he began, his voice low, "I've spoken to my lawyers. If you want to pursue legal action against Amelia, they're ready to help." Elena looked up from her seat, her gaze steady, despite the storm of emotions beneath. "I've thought about it, Benjamin, and I've come to a decision." He leaned forward, his heart pounding as he waited for her response. "I don't want to pursue legal action," she said finally. "I've spent too much of my life focused on what I lost. I don't want to dwell on the past anymore. But that doesn't mean Amelia should go unpunished. She needs to face what she's done." Benjamin nodded slowly, respecting her choice. "Then let me handle it. I'll make sure she's held accountable, without dragging you into a legal battle." The next day, Benjamin arranged a meeting with Amelia at his penthouse. When she arrived, she was all smiles, her usual air of confidence firmly in place. But as soon as she saw the serious expression on Benjamin's face, her demeanor shifted. "Benjamin," she said cautiously, "what's this about?" Without preamble, he handed her a file containing the details of the accident, along with evidence tying her to the scene. Amelia's face paled as she scanned the documents, her hands trembling. "You thought this would stay buried forever," Benjamin said, his voice cold and unforgiving. "But now the truth is out, and you're going to make things right." Amelia's eyes darted to him, panic evident in her expression. "Benjamin, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was an accident." "An accident you fled from," he shot back, his voice rising. "You left Elena there, alone and broken, and you hid from the consequences. That ends now." Amelia tried to plead, her voice shaking. "Please, Benjamin, I'll do anything, just don't ruin my life." "I'm not interested in ruining your life, Amelia," he said, his tone measured but firm. "I'm interested in justice. You're going to pay for Elena's surgery, cover her rehabilitation costs, and compensate her for everything she's been through." Amelia's mouth opened as if to argue, but the look in Benjamin's eyes silenced her. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a steely whisper. "And if you ever try to avoid your responsibility again, I'll make sure the legal system does what I'm sparing you from now." Defeated, Amelia nodded, her once unshakable confidence crumbling. "I'll do it," she whispered. "I'll pay for everything." Benjamin didn't respond immediately. He stared at her for a long moment, then stood and walked to the door. "Good. My lawyers will handle the details. Now get out." As the door closed behind her, Benjamin felt a mix of relief and lingering anger. Justice might not undo the past, but it was a step toward healing, for both Elena and himself. When Benjamin shared the news with Elena later that evening, she listened quietly, her expression unreadable. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice soft. "I don't know what I would have done without you." "You would have found a way," Benjamin replied with a faint smile. "That's who you are." With Amelia's financial backing secured, Elena scheduled her surgery. It was a nerve-wracking process, one filled with uncertainty and hope. Benjamin was with her every step of the way, holding her hand as she was wheeled into the operating room and waiting anxiously for news from the doctors. The surgery was a success, but the road to recovery was long and arduous. Physical therapy sessions tested Elena's limits, but she faced each challenge with the same determination that had carried her through the darkest moments of her life. Benjamin was her constant companion, cheering her on with every small victory and lifting her spirits on the tough days. One afternoon, weeks into her recovery, Elena stood on her own for the first time. The room erupted in applause from the physical therapy team, but all Elena could focus on was Benjamin's face. The pride and joy in his eyes were enough to bring tears to her own. "You did it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I always knew you could." As their bond deepened, Benjamin found himself planning a future he hadn't dared to imagine before meeting Elena. On a crisp winter evening, as snow blanketed the city, he took her to the rooftop garden of his penthouse. The space had been transformed into a wonderland of twinkling lights and fragrant blooms. Elena looked around in awe, her breath visible in the chilly air. "This is beautiful," she murmured. "It's not the only thing that's beautiful," Benjamin said, taking her hand. He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Elena," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You've shown me a world I never thought I'd see, taught me the value of love, strength, and forgiveness. You've made me a better man. I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Elena's eyes as she nodded, her voice breaking as she whispered, "Yes." Benjamin slipped the ring onto her finger, then rose to embrace her. As they kissed, the city stretched out below them, a shimmering expanse of possibility. Their wedding was a celebration of love and resilience, attended by friends, colleagues, and even the physical therapists who had become like family to Elena. As she walked down the aisle, her steps steady and sure, Benjamin couldn't help but marvel at her strength. She had overcome so much, and now they would face the future together. Their life was not without challenges, but together they built something extraordinary. Elena's wisdom and kindness tempered Benjamin's ambition, while his determination gave her the support she needed to chase her dreams. In each other, they found not just love, but a partnership that made them both stronger. The world outside their home continued to turn, filled with the chaos and noise of daily life. But within their walls there was peace, love, and a profound understanding that together they could face anything. In the years that followed, Benjamin and Elena's lives intertwined in ways neither of them could have predicted. Their marriage became a source of inspiration for those around them, a testament to resilience and the transformative power of love. Elena continued her work with the community, dedicating herself to helping others navigate the challenges she had once faced. Her advocacy for accessibility and equality made her a respected voice in New York City, and she often credited Benjamin for giving her the platform to amplify her message. For Benjamin, life had taken on a new meaning. The cutthroat deals and relentless pursuit of power that had once defined him now felt hollow compared to the life he was building with Elena. He shifted his focus within the Carter Corporation, steering the company toward projects that emphasized innovation for social good, technology that improved lives, especially for those with disabilities. It was a change that shocked his board, but won him admiration from those who believed in a greater purpose for success. One sunny spring afternoon, Elena stood at a podium in Central Park, addressing a crowd gathered for the grand opening of an accessible playground she had helped design. The event was buzzing with families, children laughing, and playing on equipment tailored to their diverse needs. Benjamin stood off to the side, watching her with pride as she spoke with passion and eloquence. "This playground isn't just a space for children," Elena said, her voice carrying through the crowd. "It's a statement that everyone deserves to belong, to be seen, and to be valued. It's proof that when we work together, we can create a world where no one is left behind." As the audience erupted into applause, Benjamin felt a familiar warmth in his chest. He had once been a man obsessed with control and power, but now his greatest joy came from seeing Elena shine. After the event, as the crowd began to disperse, Benjamin approached her. "You were incredible," he said, slipping an arm around her waist. "I don't think I've ever been prouder of you." Elena smiled up at him, her eyes sparkling. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," she replied. "You believed in me when I doubted myself." "You taught me how to believe in something greater," he said, his voice soft, "and for that I'll always be grateful." Their lives settled into a rhythm that balanced their personal and professional ambitions. They traveled together, visiting places Elena had always dreamed of seeing. They hosted charity galas and quietly funded scholarships for students with disabilities. Each endeavor brought them closer, their partnership growing stronger with every shared milestone. But life, as always, had its challenges. One evening, while reviewing documents in his home office, Benjamin received a call that would shake their world. It was from one of his closest associates, informing him of a hostile takeover bid targeting a division of the Carter Corporation. The news reignited old anxieties, stirring the competitive fire that had once driven him to ruthless heights. Elena noticed his restlessness that night as they sat together in their living room. "What's wrong?" she asked, placing a hand on his knee. Benjamin hesitated before answering. "There's a situation at the company. Someone's trying to force their way in, and if I don't act quickly, it could unravel everything." Elena studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "You've faced challenges like this before," she said, "but this time you're not alone. We'll figure it out together." Her words grounded him, reminding him of the strength they shared. Over the next few weeks, they worked side by side, strategizing and leaning on each other's strengths. Elena's ability to connect with people and find creative solutions complemented Benjamin's sharp business acumen. Together, they thwarted the takeover and emerged stronger, both as a couple and as partners. Their journey continued to evolve, marked by moments of triumph and trials that tested their resilience. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Elena with a quiet getaway to a cabin in the Adirondacks, a place she had once mentioned wanting to visit. As they sat by the fire that evening, the crackling flames casting a warm glow on their faces, Benjamin took her hand. "I never thought my life could feel this full," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've given me so much more than I ever thought possible." Elena leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "And you've shown me that love can heal even the deepest wounds," she replied. "I never thought I'd find someone who truly saw me, Benjamin, but you did." As they sat there, wrapped in each other's warmth, they both knew that their journey was far from over. They would face whatever came their way, together. The years passed, bringing new chapters to their story. Elena's advocacy work expanded, earning her national recognition, while Benjamin continued to transform his company into a force for good. Their love remained steadfast, a guiding light through the challenges and joys of life. In the end, their story was not just one of love, but of transformation, a testament to what can happen when two people meet, see each other for who they truly are, and choose to walk forward together. It was a legacy they built not with power or wealth, but with the kind of strength that endures, compassion, understanding, and unwavering faith in one another. In the months following Elena's surgery, life took on a new rhythm. Her physical therapy became a shared journey for her and Benjamin. Though her recovery was remarkable, every step required determination. She practiced walking in their garden at home, the support of Benjamin's hand steadying her as she ventured further with each attempt. The process was slow and challenging, but Elena was relentless. For Benjamin, it was humbling to watch the strength she displayed daily. Where others might see progress measured in steps, he saw it as a testament to her resilience and courage. One evening, after a particularly grueling therapy session, Elena sat on the couch with her legs stretched out, the muscles aching but alive. Benjamin brought her a cup of tea, sitting beside her with his own cup. She leaned her head on his shoulder, letting out a sigh that mixed relief with exhaustion. "You amaze me," he said softly, stroking her hair. "Every time I think I understand your strength, you show me more." Elena smiled, though her eyes were tired. "I think we all have that strength in us. Sometimes it just takes something, or someone, to help us find it." Benjamin kissed the top of her head. "I'm so proud of you, Elena. You've taught me more about life than I ever thought possible." Their evenings became sacred moments of connection, a time when they could talk openly about their fears, their dreams, and the future they were building together. One night, as they sat watching the city lights from the balcony of their penthouse, Elena turned to Benjamin with a question that had been on her mind. "Have you ever thought about what life might have been like if we hadn't met?" she asked, her voice contemplative. Benjamin considered her words, his expression serious. "I think about it all the time," he admitted, "and every time I come to the same conclusion, I'd still be stuck in that hollow, lonely place I was before you. You gave me a reason to live, not just exist." Elena's eyes welled with emotion, and she reached for his hand. "You've changed my life too, Benjamin. You've shown me that love can be a source of strength, not a burden. And you've given me hope for a future I thought I'd never have." Their bond deepened as they continued to grow together, but life, as it often does, brought new challenges. One of them came in the form of a major project that Benjamin had taken on, a groundbreaking initiative to develop affordable, accessible technology for people with disabilities. While it was a cause close to their hearts, The project drew criticism from stakeholders who saw it as a departure from the Carter Corporation's profit-driven focus. At a tense board meeting, Benjamin faced opposition from several members. "This initiative is admirable," one board member said, "but it's a financial risk we can't afford to take. Our investors expect returns, not philanthropy." Benjamin's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. "This isn't philanthropy," he said firmly. "It's innovation. Accessible technology is the future, and by leading the way, we'll not only help millions of people, we'll position ourselves as pioneers in a rapidly growing market." The board members exchanged uneasy glances, but Benjamin's resolve was unshakable. After hours of discussion, they reluctantly approved the project. Later that evening, he shared the experience with Elena. "You're changing the world, Benjamin," she said, pride evident in her voice. "And you're doing it for the right reasons." He smiled, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you. You're my inspiration." Meanwhile, Elena's own life was evolving. Her work as an advocate had gained traction, and she was invited to speak at conferences and events across the country. Her story of resilience, combined with her expertise in accessibility design, made her a sought-after voice in her field. Though the travel and public speaking pushed her out of her comfort zone, Elena embraced the opportunity to make a difference. One memorable evening, she stood on a stage before a packed auditorium, delivering a keynote speech about overcoming adversity. As she spoke, her voice steady and passionate, Benjamin watched from the audience, his chest swelling with pride. She spoke of the challenges she had faced and the people who had supported her, her words resonating deeply with everyone present. "I've learned that true strength isn't about what we can do alone," she said in closing. "It's about the connections we build, the people who lift us up, and the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain." The applause was thunderous, and as she stepped off the stage, Benjamin was there to greet her. "You were incredible," he said, wrapping her in a hug. "The world needs more people like you," Elena smiled, her heart full, "and more people like you to believe in them." Their love story became a beacon of hope for those around them, a reminder that even in the face of life's greatest challenges, love and determination could create something extraordinary. Together, they built not just a life, but a legacy, one rooted in compassion, innovation, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. Would you like me to expand even further, perhaps developing subplots, delving into their pasts, or exploring additional characters? Let me know how you'd like this story to grow.